when people who had previously supported a regime begin to understand that it's going down. And as you know, it is our view that Assad will eventually fall.
Can you say who these people are?
I'm not in a position to name names and those kinds of things for a number of reasons, including the privacy of the individuals, some of whom are in mid-process here because they want to make sure that all of their family members can be safe.
Just on the deputy oil minister, is it something that you guys are able to do to confirm the authenticity of this video? I mean, should we expect at some point a ruling on whether or not the U.S. sees this as a genuine defection?
Well, presumably after some time has passed, it'll be a little clearer exactly where he is and whether folks outside of Syria have spotted him. But one of the things we would note about this is that he would be well placed, this particular individual, to understand the impact that the international sanctions that that the Europeans, that the Arab League, that other countries are now beginning to put on Syria are having for the regime, are having for the health and welfare of Syria and the Syrian people. So, you know, this particular individual is privy to a lot of information about what Assad has really done to his country.
Just on this, and I realize that you can't confirm his identity, but is there a deputy oil minister of this name that you're aware of?
Yes. Yes. Anything else? All set? Go watch basketball? No?
I don't know if you have seen the press reports from Valerie Amos's trip to Homs. She's apparently come out saying that she's been devastated. I'm wondering, have you received any information from the UN or from her office about what exactly was seen on that trip?
We have not, I don't think, had a full debrief yet on her visit. You've seen what she's been saying to the press. I would simply note that although the Syrian regime allowed her in, they still have not allowed in the humanitarian aid that she oversees, particularly into those most devastated neighborhoods outside of Homs. Okay, moving on. Yeah.
Yeah. Any reaction to these reports that of narcotics trafficking and weapons trafficking by the Afghan Air Force? I know that the U.S. military is supposedly looking into those allegations. Has there been any coordination here?
Well, as you know, the Pentagon does have the lead in looking into this, and I think they spoke to it earlier today. You know where we are on any kind of corruption and our continuing efforts to work with the Afghans on these issues, but I can't speak to these particular allegations, and the Pentagon has committed that they are working with the Afghans to investigate. So, please.
Sorry, can I briefly go back to Syria? Can I have a reaction to Turkey's comments that they're toughening their stance towards the regime and they might consider helping the Salvation Army with arms?
Well, I haven't seen what you're specifically referring to. I think that the Turkish position has been quite tough for some time. You know where we stand on these issues. We're making our views clear to Turkey, but Turkey has been an enormous help in the humanitarian effort, taking in so many Syrian refugees and now providing staging points for the humanitarian aid, and our discussion with them on Syria is ongoing.
And also, can I have a reaction to this Chinese envoy in Damascus, this peace plan?
Well, we don't have any particular information. We haven't had a readout from the Chinese. Any effort to alleviate the suffering of the Syrian people is most welcome. You know our view that his guns have to be silenced first before anybody could expect the other side to match that. So our hope is that the Chinese government is doing some good here. We'll see when they come out. Please.
Tori, have you seen this video that's going around the web, the Kony 2012 video? And does the State Department have a reaction to that or a comment on it?
We have. It's had some 25 million tweets. In fact, Mark had it brought to his attention by his 13-year-old, I think, earlier this morning. Well, certainly we appreciate the efforts of the group Invisible Children to shine a light on the horrible atrocities of the LRA. As you know, there are neighboring states. There are NGO groups who have been working on this problem for decades. And we, of course, are very much involved in trying to support all the states of East and Central Africa. We have a multifaceted strategy to work on this, including, as you know, we now have special forces advisors working to train some of the neighboring states in their efforts to get a handle on this awful problem.
If I could just follow up, the film makes a point that they are doing this now because the U.S., they say, the U.S. could pull out these advisors that you cited at any moment. So they're trying to keep up the momentum. Is that a concern, a right concern on their part, that these advisors could be moved out of Uganda?
I don't have any information to indicate that we are considering that, but that would be a question for the Pentagon. As you know, they've only been in for a couple of months, and we consider them a very important augmentation of our effort to help the East and Central African countries with this problem. As you know, hundreds of people, and thousands of people around the world, especially young people, have been mobilized to express concern for the communities in Central Africa that have been placed under siege by the LRA. So the degree to which this YouTube video helps to increase awareness and increase support for the work that governments are doing, including our own government, that can only help all of us.
Just one more, if I may. Would an update on what these advisors are doing currently be more of a question for the Pentagon, or do you have
well, we've spoken about this in general terms. If you need a detailed briefing, I'd send you to them. But we are not part of the fight ourselves. We're involved in training and supporting and providing advice to the forces of the governments of East and Central Africa that are engaged in the fight.
Are you concerned that this type of call, which takes viral form on the web and so on, might increase pressure for direct U.S. involvement in the fight for Kony, rather than just providing the support that you mentioned?
I don't think anybody in the region favors that. What they have asked for is this logistical, technical training support, and that is what we are providing. We are also helping them with their public information campaign. We're trying to get the word into these communities that if members of the LRA, whether they're pressed into service or whether they're volunteers, are ready to defect, that they'll have support in doing that, etc.
Just one more.
Catherine, yeah.
Their strategy is to target 12 policymakers, that they call it. I don't believe Secretary Clinton was on that exact list, but has the State Department received, an uptick in phone calls or emails or anything of the like?
Not to my knowledge. I think that this building and frankly this government has a reputation of being on the right side in these issues and being quite aggressive in trying to support the governments that are going after the LRA. Please, Elise.
On Iran, could you tell us what you're making of these comments by the Supreme Leader, saying that the fact that President Obama was speaking out against going to war with Iran was positive, but that trying to cripple the Iranian people by more sanctions was not positive?
Well,
it seems like it's a little bit more. It does seem, in a way, to be a little bit more conciliatory towards the United States. And I'm wondering if the U.S. thinks this is some kind of overture by the Supreme Leader for that they're serious about talks.
I have to say I haven't seen what the Supreme Leader had to say in particular. Secretary spoke quite clearly this morning in quite a full manner about our expectations as we move forward with Iran. And as you know, we also had a statement from the P5+1 in Vienna in the context of the BOG meetings on our expectations with regard to access for the IAEA into Parchin and other facilities.
Sort of Iran-related, Israeli media reports are saying that Israel's asked the United States for advanced bunker buster bombs and refueling planes that might increase its capacity to go after the Iranian nuclear facilities. Do you have any comment on these reports? Have these requests been made?
Well, these were put in the context of conversations between the President and Prime Minister Netanyahu. We're obviously not going to get into details with regard to their conversation. I don't think anybody should doubt the commitment that we've made to Israel's security, to Israel's qualitative military edge. That commitment has been matched. It's not just in words. It's in deeds, and the president has spoke to that a little bit when Prime Minister Netanyahu was here.
Right, well, you don't have to get into the conversation between the Prime Minister and the President, but presumably if there was such a request, it would not stay just at that level. It would get down to the people who would actually have to arrange for the sale and the provision, which means that there would be quite a wide net of people involved in the conversation. How about any conversation between people in this building, in particular Assistant Secretary Shapiro, and his Israeli counterparts on this same subject?
I do not believe that conversation has taken place. I don't have anything for you on it either way. Saeed?
Yes, Victoria, on this issue, if and when the talks are resumed with Iran, what would be the point of departure? Is it where they stopped before, or there is a new set of demands or requests that are in place now?
Well, as you know, the Secretary's made clear, the President's made clear that as we go into these talks, we have the goal of, on the one hand, ensuring that this is not a one-day wonder, and on the other hand, ensuring that if the talks go forward, that they are sustainable, that any progress made is verifiable. So with regard to exactly how this is going to go, step by step, we're still working that through with our various partners. But the goal is to ensure that the degree to which Iran makes commitments to come back into compliance with its international obligations, that those are verifiable, that we can have the kind of transparency to be sure that they are meeting the individual commitments that they are making. So I'm not going to prejudge what our position is going to be going in or what their position is going to be going in, but you can be sure that there are a lot of people working on this issue of ensuring that any steps taken are true steps, that they can be verified, and that they can be seen clearly.
Mm-hmm. We understand, just a quick follow-up, Andy, we understand that Iran needs to be credible and not use the talks as a ploy to waste time or buy time and so on. But there is a covert war going on, part of which is really cyber attacks and so on. Suppose Iran requests that these activities stop. Would the United States, for instance, be receptive to such an idea?
I'm not going to get into the back and forth. Okay. There shouldn't be any cyber warfare of any kind, as you know. Okay.
Just a follow-up on that one. On the P5+1 statement out of the IAEA on the Parchin facility, this urging Iran to grant access, does that constitute a precondition for the P5+1 to actually start the broader talks, i.e. do the Iranians have to allow inspectors back into Parchin before any talks can resume?
Well, as you know, when the IAEA went in and wasn't able to see Parchin, our hope had been that before we answered the letter, we would already have the results of that visit. So we were disappointed by that. We considered that a missed opportunity by the Iranians to demonstrate to the world that what they say is true, that this is a purely peaceful program. So there will certainly be an expectation, as we said in the P5+1 letter today, that the IAEA will be able to get into Parchin soon, as well as all the other facilities that it wants to see. But there's not an expectation that that has to happen before talks start, although it should have already happened. So as soon as possible is our stand.
Right, but I mean, does it mean as much now that to get into the sites now that there are some reports about satellite images that show that Iran is cleaning up the site, even as it's saying that inspectors can come back in?
Well, we've seen the same reports that you have. These reports underscore the importance of the IAEA being able to get into this site as soon as possible. And, you know, there are concerns about Iranian stalling in this regard.
Sorry. There are concerns about Iranian stalling in what regard? You have concerns that they're trying to wipe up, clean up after something at these sites?
We've seen these same reports, and the question...
You've seen the images? I mean, these were.
I'm
you
not
know-
going to get into what we see through intelligence. I'm simply going to say
Well,
that.
I mean, there are certainly U.S. officials that are saying that there are satellite images that show that Iran is cleaning up the site, and the IAEA Secretary General or the